Parents canceled my birthday party to fund my golden sister's luxury trip. So I got even. Hey everyone, I'm Julia, and I'm about to turn 20. I'm deep in finals week right now, studying architecture. It's brutal, honestly. Late nights, tons of projects. My dorm room is a complete disaster with blueprints and coffee cups everywhere. But the thing keeping me going right now? My birthday is coming up, and my grandma's planning something for me. And yeah, I know. A family celebration shouldn't be that big of a deal, but for me, it's kind of a mixed bag. Growing up, family time always felt like a duty, like something I had to get through instead of something to enjoy. See, my older brother Ryan, he's 25. He's always been the favorite, the golden child, if you will. Meanwhile, I've been more of a side character in my own family, the extra, the one who just filled the space. I'll give you a good example. When I was 8, Ryan was turning 13. My parents went all out, like full-on event. They rented this place with one of those VR setups, a DJ, and a huge cake with his name written in bold. I remember being so excited. I mean, it was the kind of party you'd see in those over-the-top movies. And I thought, wow, maybe when my birthday comes around, they'll do something cool for me too. Well, my birthday comes a few months later. No VR, no DJ. Just a tiny cake from the supermarket with plain frosting and a pair of socks. Yeah, socks. I tried to act grateful, but honestly, it was a letdown. I remember my mom just patting me on the head saying, "Don't be dramatic, Julia, it's just a birthday." And that's when it kind of hit me. This was just how things were going to be. After that, it became pretty obvious that I was never going to be the one who got the big celebrations or the cool gifts. Ryan would get the latest tech every year. A new phone, the newest gaming console, you name it. Well, I got his old hand-me-downs. One year, when he graduated high school, my parents bought him a car. A freaking car. And when I graduated, they gave me a $50 gift card to a bookstore. Like, don't get me wrong, I like books, but it's not exactly the same level, you know? Honestly, I've come to expect it by now. It's like, whatever. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't sting, but I've just learned to deal with it. But the one person who's never treated me like an afterthought is my grandma Ruth. She's the real MVP in my life. She's always had my back, whether it's calling to check up on me or just showing up with a hot meal when I'm drowning in assignments. Grandma Ruth's different from my parents. She's been around forever. She used to run her own design firm back in the day, so she gets the whole work hard mindset. She was actually thrilled when I told her I wanted to study architecture. "You've got a good head on your shoulders, Julia," she'd say. "You'll go far." And the thing is, she meant it. No hidden agenda, no strings attached, just pure support. This year, she insisted on planning my birthday party. At first, I didn't really believe her. I mean, yeah, she's my grandma, and she loves me. But my parents have brushed off my birthdays for years. Why would this one be any different? But then she told me she had given my parents $3,000 for it. 3 grand. She wanted me to have something special for once, and she wasn't going to take no for an answer. When she told me, I was actually shocked. My parents never put that much effort into me, like, ever. So, knowing that my grandma was stepping up for me, it felt amazing. I was excited, but also kind of nervous, you know? I didn't want to get my hopes up, only for things to go the same way they always did. Anyway, fast forward to finals week. I'm cramming for my last exam, but all I can think about is going home and seeing if they actually pulled off a party for me. My roommate, Alice, even joked about it. "Hey, you ready for the big family bash?" she said, smirking as I stuffed my backpack with textbooks. "Yeah, should be interesting," I mumbled back, trying to sound more excited than I felt. The truth is, I had no idea what to expect. Alice knew my family situation, how it's always been this weird thing with me and Ryan. "Hey, at least your grandma's in charge, right?" she added. "She's always had your back." And she was right. Grandma's the only reason I even felt a glimmer of hope. If she was involved, maybe, just maybe, things would turn out differently this time. So the next day, I walked out of my final exam, feeling a huge weight lift off my shoulders. It was like the whole world was in color again. I started thinking about all the possibilities. Maybe there'd be decorations, balloons, a cake that wasn't from the clearance section. I was really letting myself believe, for once, that my family would actually do something nice for me. As I was heading back to my dorm, my phone buzzed with a few early birthday messages from friends. They knew I'd be heading home soon, and it felt good to be remembered, even if it was just by people I'd met a couple of years ago. It was weird. Like these friends who'd known me for such a short time seemed to care more than my own family sometimes. "Happy almost birthday, Julia," Alice called out as I walked into our room, grinning like she was more excited than I was. "Thanks," I replied, smiling back, but deep down, I still had this knot in my stomach. Family stuff always messes with my head, you know? I wanted to believe things would be different, but there was this part of me that was bracing for the worst. Like, what if I get home and it's the same story as every other year? The bus ride home felt longer than ever. My mind was running through a million scenarios. Maybe they'd actually put up some decorations, or maybe they'd just left everything for me to do. I tried to keep my hopes up, telling myself that with Grandma Ruth backing this, it had to be good. It just had to. When I finally got off the bus, I stood outside my house for a second, taking a deep breath. It looked the same as it always did. No balloons, no banners. I figured maybe they'd set everything up inside, so I stayed positive. I opened the front door, calling out, "Mom, Dad, I'm home!" But all I got was silence. The house felt too quiet, like the kind of quiet you get when people don't want to be noticed. I felt this weird chill run down my spine. I dropped my backpack by the door and headed to the living room, my heart pounding a little faster with each step. When I turned the corner, I found my parents sitting on the couch, looking uncomfortable. That was when I started feeling like something was off. "Hey, where's all the, birthday stuff?" I asked, trying to sound casual. My mom and dad exchanged this look like they were bracing themselves for something. And that's when my heart really sank. But instead of freaking out right then, I just stood there, waiting for them to explain. I guess, in a way, I was still holding on to that tiny bit of hope that they'd actually done something for me. I'm standing there in the living room, my parents giving me these awkward looks, and it's like I already know what they're going to say before they even say it. I hate that feeling, when you can just tell something's wrong, but you have to wait for them to spit it out. My dad's the first to speak. He clears his throat, not really looking at me. "Julia, about the birthday party," he starts, and right then, my stomach drops. I felt this wave of dread, like I should have seen this coming. I mean, deep down, I knew. My parents never really cared about my birthday before, so why would this one be different, even with Grandma's money involved? But still, I'd let myself hope, and now I was standing here, waiting for the inevitable letdown. "We decided not to organize your birthday party," my dad finally says, as if he's delivering some kind of news about the weather, like it's no big deal. I blink at him, completely thrown off. "What? But Grandma gave you money for it," I say, trying to wrap my head around it. My mom jumps in before I can say more. "We gave the money to Ryan for his trip. He and his girlfriend flew to Vegas a couple of days ago." And that's when I feel like I've been punched in the gut. I just stare at them, my mind blank for a second as I try to process what they just said. Ryan? The money was for my birthday. It wasn't for some trip. You what?" I managed to get out, feeling this hot anger bubbling up. "But that money was for me. Grandma gave it to you for my birthday." My dad shrugs like it's nothing. "Ryan needed a break. You understand, don't you?" "Understand?" I feel my hands start to shake. "No, I don't understand," I say, my voice getting louder. "It was supposed to be my birthday party. I invited people and I thought—" I stopped myself, realizing I sound desperate. I hate that I still care, but I do. I hate that I let myself think they'd actually do something nice for me this time. My mom just sighs, like I'm being a nuisance. "We've already taken care of it, Julia," she says in this dismissive tone. "We called everyone and told them you were having some issues at college and that the party was canceled." I stand there, stunned. They lied to my friends. They made it sound like something was wrong with me instead of just admitting they gave away the money. "You lied to them about me," I say, feeling my voice crack. "How could you do this?" And then my dad's face changes. He's not avoiding eye contact anymore. Now he looks annoyed. "That's enough, Julia. You need to stop being so selfish. Ryan needed a vacation and you don't always get to have what you want." Selfish. They always use that word like it's some magic trick to shut me down. I almost laugh because it's just so ridiculous. "How am I being selfish?" I snap back. "It was my birthday, my party. I've been waiting for this for weeks." And just when I think this whole mess can't get worse, the front door opens and for a second, I hope it's Ryan back early, maybe feeling guilty. But no, it's Grandma Ruth. She steps inside, her eyes narrowing as she takes in the scene. She's wearing that no-nonsense look she gets when she knows something's up. I can tell she already knows it's bad. "What's going on here?" she asks, her voice sharp. "Where's the party?" I look at my parents, waiting to see how they'll try to spin this one. They both freeze, and I swear it's like they're kids caught with their hands in the cookie jar. My dad opens his mouth, but no words come out. My mom just looks down at the floor. It's pathetic, really. So I decide to speak up. I'm done letting them control the narrative. "There is no party, Grandma," I say, my voice shaking. "They gave the money to Ryan so he could go to Vegas instead." The words spill out before I can stop them, and I feel this mix of anger and sadness, but also relief. I'm tired of pretending everything's okay. The look on Grandma Ruth's face is one I've never seen before. It's like this mix of fury and disappointment, and for once it's not aimed at me. She's staring right at my parents, and they can't even look her in the eye. Is this true? She demands, her voice sharp as a knife. My parents just stand there, silent, and that silence says everything. Grandma Ruth's face hardens, and she shakes her head slowly. I cannot believe this, she says, and I can hear the hurt in her voice. She turns to me, her expression softening. Julia, go pack your things. You're coming with me. I feel a weight lift off my shoulders. Without a word, I rush upstairs, grabbing my backpack and throwing in some clothes. I can still hear Grandma's voice downstairs, and she's not holding back. I can't make out everything she's saying, but it's clear she's furious. And honestly, it feels kind of good to know that someone's finally standing up for me. When I come back downstairs, my parents are still standing there, looking like they've been caught doing something shameful. They don't even try to stop me as I walk past them. Grandma's waiting by the door, and she gives me this nod, like we're in this together. We walk out, and I don't look back. As we get into her car and drive away, I feel this strange mix of emotions. On one hand, I'm angry, angrier than I've ever been. But on the other hand, I feel this sense of freedom, like I'm finally breaking away from this messed up dynamic. And yeah, I'm upset about the party, but honestly, it's not even about that anymore. It's about years of feeling like I don't matter. Grandma doesn't say much as she drives. She just reaches over and pats my hand, and for the first time in a long while, I feel like someone actually sees me, like someone actually cares about how I feel. Don't you worry, dear, she says, her voice gentle but firm. We'll sort this out. You deserve better than this. And the way she says it, it's not like some empty promise. It's like she means it. We pull into her driveway, and she turns to me with this determined look in her eyes. This might not be the party you were expecting, Julia, but we're going to celebrate your birthday properly. I manage a small smile, feeling a bit of hope creep in. Thanks, Grandma, I say. And it's the first time in forever that I actually feel like maybe things are going to be okay. As we step inside her house, I know things are going to change. I don't know exactly how, but for the first time, I'm ready for it. So after I move in with Grandma Ruth, it's a bit of an adjustment. I mean, I've always felt comfortable around her, but living with her, it's different. I'm used to keeping my head down at home, avoiding attention so I don't get caught up in whatever drama my parents or Ryan are creating. But here it's just me and her, and I've got no reason to hide. For once, I can just be me. Grandma didn't waste any time making sure I felt welcome. We spent the evening ordering takeout, like a ton of it, and she had this huge grin on her face the whole time, like she was just happy to have me around. She didn't even let me lift a finger, saying, "It's your birthday, Julia. You get to relax." It felt weird, in a good way. I couldn't remember the last time someone went out of their way for me like that. As we ate, she started sharing stories from when she was younger. I'd heard a few of them before, but hearing them again now, it felt different. Like she was trying to remind me that there's more to life than whatever mess my parents are caught up in. She told me about how she built her design firm from scratch, how she faced people doubting her just because she was a woman, and how she proved them all wrong. And honestly, it was inspiring. It made me think that maybe I could build something for myself too. But even with all that good energy, I couldn't shake this feeling that something wasn't right. The whole thing with my parents was still eating at me. Like, why couldn't they just care about me the same way they do about Ryan? Why was it always so easy for them to just push me aside? I didn't want to let it ruin my time with Grandma, but it was there, nagging at the back of my mind. Finally, after dinner, we were sitting on the couch, and I just couldn't hold it in anymore. Grandma, I started, trying to find the right words. Why don't they love me like they love Ryan? She paused, her hand on her teacup, and I could see this look cross her face, like she'd been waiting for me to ask. She sighed, setting the cup down and turning to face me. Julia, I've been wanting to have this conversation for a while. I just didn't know when would be the right time. Now my heart's pounding, and I'm thinking, what does that even mean? But I just nod, trying to keep it together, because something about her tone tells me that whatever she's about to say isn't going to be easy to hear. She takes a deep breath, and then she looks me straight in the eyes. Your parents. They didn't want another child after Ryan. I sit there, completely stunned. What? I manage to say, my voice barely above a whisper. But why? My mind is racing, trying to make sense of it all. She continues, and there's this sadness in her eyes. They thought Ryan was enough. They were happy with just him. And when they found out about you, they were upset. Your mom, she had a rough pregnancy with you, and the birth was complicated. She nearly didn't make it. I feel this lump in my throat, and I can feel tears welling up. But I don't want to cry in front of her. So, it's my fault then? I say, and I hate how small my voice sounds, but I can't help it. Grandma's face softens, and she reaches out, grabbing my hand. No, Julia, it's not your fault at all. These things happen sometimes, and it's nobody's fault. But after that, your mom, she couldn't bring herself to bond with you. And your dad, well, he just went along with whatever she felt. I sit there, trying to take it all in. It's like this puzzle I've been trying to figure out for years, and now all the pieces are finally falling into place. But it doesn't make it any easier to hear. So, they just decided I didn't matter? I ask, and there's this bitterness in my voice that I've never let myself feel before. But now, I just can't hold it back. Pretty much, Grandma says quietly. But I fought for you, Julia. I convinced them to keep you. And I've tried to be there for you as much as I can because I know how they've treated you. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. And that's when the tears finally come. I've always known something was off. But hearing it confirmed, hearing that my own parents didn't even want me, it's like this heavy weight drops on my chest. I've spent so much time blaming myself, thinking I just wasn't good enough for them to care. But knowing they never even tried, that stings. Grandma pulls me into a hug and I let myself cry into her shoulder. She doesn't say anything, just holds me. And for the first time, I feel like someone actually understands. She's always been there for me, and right now that's all I need. After a while, she pulls back and looks at me, wiping the tears off my face. Listen to me, Julia. None of this is your fault. You are a bright, talented young woman, and you deserve to be treated with love and respect. If your parents can't see that, it's their loss. I nod, sniffling, and she gives me this determined look. You're not alone in this. I've got your back. And from now on, we're going to make sure you have the support you need no matter what. I don't know what to say, so I just hug her again. It feels good to know that I have at least one person on my side, someone who really cares about me. Not just because they have to, but because they want to. After a while, we end up watching some TV, just trying to take our minds off everything. But my brain is still buzzing with everything she told me. I keep going over it, replaying the conversation in my head, and I realize that it all makes so much sense now. The way my parents treated me, the way they always put Ryan first. It wasn't something I did wrong. It was their choice, right from the beginning. Later, as I'm getting ready for bed, Grandma pops her head into the room. Hey, tomorrow, why don't we go shopping? Get out of the house and do something fun. We could even get some stuff for your room here. Make it feel more like home. I nod, feeling a small smile creep onto my face. Yeah, I'd like that. She gives me a warm smile back. Good. And remember, Julia, you're not alone anymore. We've got this. As she leaves the room, I finally feel like things are starting to change, even if it's just a little. For so long, I felt trapped in this cycle where I could never be good enough for my family. But now I know that it wasn't even about me. It was about them and their choices. And with Grandma's help, maybe I can finally start to move on and focus on building something for myself. I lie down, staring at the ceiling, and I feel this weird mix of emotions. There's still a lot of pain, but for the first time, there's also hope. It's small, but it's there. And that's enough for now. So after I move in with Grandma Ruth, it's a bit of an adjustment. I mean, I've always felt comfortable around her, but living with her, it's different. I'm used to keeping my head down at home, avoiding attention so I don't get caught up in whatever drama my parents or Ryan are creating. But here it's just me and her, and I've got no reason to hide. For once, I can just be me. Grandma didn't waste any time making sure I felt welcome. We spent the evening ordering takeout, like a ton of it, and she had this huge grin on her face the whole time, like she was just happy to have me around. She didn't even let me lift a finger, saying, "It's your birthday, Julia. You get to relax." It felt weird, in a good way. I couldn't remember the last time someone went out of their way for me like that. As we ate, she started sharing stories from when she was younger. I'd heard a few of them before, but hearing them again now, it felt different. Like she was trying to remind me that there's more to life than whatever mess my parents are caught up in. She told me about how she built her design firm from scratch, how she faced people doubting her just because she was a woman, and how she proved them all wrong. And honestly, it was inspiring. It made me think that maybe I could build something for myself too. But even with all that good energy, I couldn't shake this feeling that something wasn't right. The whole thing with my parents was still eating at me. Like, why couldn't they just care about me the same way they do about Ryan? Why was it always so easy for them to just push me aside? I didn't want to let it ruin my time with Grandma, but it was there, nagging at the back of my mind. Finally, after dinner, we were sitting on the couch, and I just couldn't hold it in anymore. "Grandma," I started, trying to find the right words. "Why don't they love me like they love Ryan?" She paused, her hand on her teacup, and I could see this look cross her face, like she'd been waiting for me to ask. She sighed, setting the cup down and turning to face me. Julia, I've been wanting to have this conversation for a while. I just didn't know when would be the right time. Now my heart's pounding, and I'm thinking, what does that even mean? But I just nod, trying to keep it together, because something about her tone tells me that whatever she's about to say isn't going to be easy to hear. She takes a deep breath, and then she looks me straight in the eyes. Your parents. They didn't want another child after Ryan. I sit there, completely stunned. What? I manage to say, my voice barely above a whisper. But why? My mind is racing, trying to make sense of it all. She continues, and there's this sadness in her eyes. They thought Ryan was enough. They were happy with just him. And when they found out about you, they were upset. Your mom, she had a rough pregnancy with you, and the birth was complicated. She nearly didn't make it. I feel this lump in my throat, and I can feel tears welling up, but I don't want to cry in front of her. So, it's my fault then? I say, and I hate how small my voice sounds, but I can't help it. Grandma's face softens, and she reaches out, grabbing my hand. No, Julia, it's not your fault at all. These things happen sometimes, and it's nobody's fault. But after that, your mom, she couldn't bring herself to bond with you. And your dad, well, he just went along with whatever she felt. I sit there, trying to take it all in. It's like this puzzle I've been trying to figure out for years, and now all the pieces are finally falling into place. But it doesn't make it any easier to hear. So, they just decided I didn't matter? I ask, and there's this bitterness in my voice that I've never let myself feel before. But now, I just can't hold it back. We go back to our routine, but I can tell something's brewing. I'm on edge, half expecting another call from my parents, but it doesn't come. Instead, the next day I get a text from Ryan that just says, "We need to talk. Meet me at the park." I almost ignore it, but something in me decides to go. Maybe I'm looking for some closure, or maybe I just want to hear him admit that they messed up. Either way, I show up at the park, my arms crossed and my guard up. Ryan's already there, sitting on a bench, and when he sees me, he gets up and walks over. Julia, thanks for coming, he starts, like he's trying to be polite. What do you want, Ryan? I ask, not bothering with small talk. I already told you I'm not coming back. He looks around, like he's trying to figure out the best way to start. It's not about that. I need you to talk to Grandma. I raise an eyebrow. Talk to her about what? She's cutting us off, Julia, he says, and there's this desperation in his eyes. She said she's not giving us any more money unless we make things right with you. Mom and Dad are freaking out. I can't help it. I actually laugh. Oh, now they're worried, now that the money's on the line. It's not just about the money, he insists, but I can tell even he doesn't believe that. She's changing her will, Julia. She's leaving everything to you. I feel my mouth drop open. What? Why? Ryan sighs, running a hand through his hair. Because she thinks we've treated you unfairly. She said if we don't make things right, she's going to leave us with nothing. For a second, I don't even know what to say. I knew Grandma was upset, but I didn't think she'd go this far. And then it hits me. She's actually standing up for me in a way no one else ever has. You think I'm going to convince her to change her mind? I say, crossing my arms. After everything you and Mom and Dad have done? Ryan looks desperate. Please, Julia. You know how much they rely on her help. If she cuts us off, we're screwed. I shake my head. That's not my problem, Ryan. Maybe if you guys had treated me like family instead of a backup plan, things would be different. He steps closer, and there's this edge in his voice now. You really want to do this, huh? You want to be the reason our family falls apart? I take a deep breath, standing my ground. No, Ryan. Our family fell apart a long time ago, and if you can't see that, then I'm not the one who needs to fix anything. He stares at me, like he's trying to figure out how to respond. Finally, he just shakes his head. You're making a mistake, Julia. You're going to regret this. I turn away, feeling this sense of finality. We'll see about that. As I walk away, I feel a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, but also this strange sense of freedom. For the first time, I said what I needed to say, and I didn't back down. It feels like a small victory, but it's mine. When I get back to Grandma's, she's in the kitchen, humming as she prepares lunch. I tell her about the meeting, and she just nods, like she expected it. I'm proud of you, Julia, she says. You stood up for yourself. And right then, I know I made the right choice. For the first time, I feel like I'm taking control of my own life, and I'm not going to let anyone take that away from me. It's been a couple of weeks since that whole showdown with Ryan, and I'd like to say things have calmed down, but that's just not how my family operates. After I walked away from him at the park, I felt pretty good, like I was finally standing up for myself, and making choices for my own life. But of course, my parents didn't take that lying down. I started getting calls from them the very next day. First, it was just my dad, trying to sound reasonable. Julia, we need to talk. I think there's been some misunderstandings. Misunderstandings? That's his go-to line whenever he's trying to play peacemaker without actually fixing anything. I ignored it, figuring he'd get the hint. Spoiler, he didn't. Then came the texts. My mom started with the guilt trip classics, saying stuff like, Julia, family is everything. We're all you have. Right, because nothing says family like taking money meant for my birthday and handing it to my brother for a vacation. I didn't respond. I wasn't about to get sucked back into their drama when I'd finally found a way out. But then the texts took a turn. They weren't just from my parents anymore. Now, they were coming from extended family. Aunts, uncles, even cousins I hadn't seen in years started messaging me. It was the same thing, over and over. Why are you tearing the family apart? Or grandma is old and being manipulated. You shouldn't take advantage of her. I couldn't believe it. They were all acting like I was the one causing the problem, like I had somehow tricked grandma into giving me money or something. It was exhausting. And the worst part? None of them even bothered to ask how I was feeling. It was all about my parents and Ryan, as if their comfort and happiness were the only things that mattered. I showed grandma the messages one evening, and she just shook her head, her lips tightening into a thin line. They've always been like this, she said. When someone steps out of line, they all rally to pull them back in. She gave me a reassuring look. But you don't have to go back, Julia. You're allowed to set boundaries. Hearing that from her meant everything. For so long, I'd felt trapped in this cycle of trying to make my parents happy, thinking if I just did what they wanted, maybe they'd finally see me. But Grandma was right. It was time to focus on myself for a change. It was time to choose my own path. The next day, I blocked every number that had been blowing up my phone. If they wanted to drag me back into their mess, they'd have to do it without access to me. And honestly, once I hit block on that last number, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. With the family noise out of the way, I threw myself into my work. My summer architecture internship was kicking into high gear, and for the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. The people there actually valued my input. Like, they genuinely listened to my ideas and respected my work. It was a total change from what I'd grown up with, and I loved every second of it. One afternoon, while I was going over some blueprints, my boss, Kevin, pulled me aside. Julia, I've been really impressed with your designs, he said. You've got a real eye for this. Have you ever thought about sticking around after the internship? Maybe taking on a part-time role while you finish your degree? I was caught off guard. Really? You'd want me to stay? I asked, trying not to sound too eager. He nodded. Absolutely. We could use someone like you on the team? It was a huge moment for me. I'd never had anyone recognize my work like that before. I'd always been Ryan's sister, or the quiet one. Never Julia, the person with her own talents and skills. I told Kevin I'd think about it, but honestly, I knew my answer right then. I was going to say yes. I was going to start building something for myself. That evening, I told Grandma about the offer and she beamed. That's my girl, she said, giving me a hug. You're going to do great things, Julia. I've always known it. And that's when it really hit me. I was free. Free from the expectations my parents had placed on me, free from being stuck in Ryan's shadow, free to make choices that were right for me. It felt like I was finally taking the first step toward a life that was mine. But, of course, nothing is ever that simple. A few days later, as I'm packing up some designs to bring to work, there's a knock at Grandma's door. I freeze, because deep down I know who it is. When Grandma opens the door, sure enough, it's my mom and dad standing there, looking like they've been practicing their concerned parent faces. I'm not even surprised, but I feel this tightness in my chest. Grandma steps aside, letting them in, and I brace myself for whatever speech they've prepared. Julia, we're worried about you, my mom starts, her voice all soft and sweet, like she's the concerned mother who cares. You've been avoiding us, and we don't understand why. I fold my arms, leaning against the counter. You know exactly why. You didn't care about me until Grandma got involved. You think I'm just going to forget everything? My dad chimes in. We didn't know you felt this way, Julia. If you had known, I interrupt, feeling my anger rise. You've always known. You just didn't care. Ryan was always your priority. They exchange glances, the kind they do when they're trying to figure out how to handle me. That's not true, my mom says, but she doesn't sound convincing, not even to herself. We've always loved you. We just didn't know how to show it. I shake my head, feeling a mix of anger and pity. Well, you've had 20 years to figure it out and you didn't. And now, just because there's money involved, you want to act like everything's fine? My dad's expression changes. This isn't about money, Julia. It's about family. I almost laugh. Right. And when exactly did you start caring about family? Before they can say anything else, Grandma steps in. I think it's time you both left, she says, her voice firm. Julia has made her decision, and I support her. She doesn't owe you anything. My parents look stunned, like they didn't expect her to side with me so strongly. My mom's eyes well up, and she puts on this whole act. Please, Julia, we're trying here. But I've heard enough. You're only trying because Grandma cut you off. Don't pretend it's anything else. Grandma opens the door, and without another word, my parents leave, looking more defeated than I've ever seen them. And honestly, I don't feel sorry for them. They made their choices, and now they have to live with them. After they're gone, I turn to Grandma, and she pulls me into a hug. You did the right thing, Julia. Sometimes standing up for yourself means letting people go. As I pull away, I finally feel that sense of freedom again, like I've let go of something I've been carrying my whole life. Thanks, Grandma, I say, and I mean it. I don't know what I'd do without you. She smiles. You're stronger than you think, Julia, and you're going to build a life that's yours, no matter what anyone else says. And for the first time, I believe her.